Stick around, Tech. I need your moral support.
Moral support my foot. You mean you got some questions but no answers, Bert? Isn't that about it?
Okay, Tech. You're right. I was wondering about that sharp-looking windshield on the new Plymouth. It sure is pretty, but how much trouble am I going to have replacing this glass?
No trouble at all, Bert. On most models, you can actually do all the work on the outside. You're going to find this windshield easier to service, especially on the Plymouth Plaza, where there are no outside chrome moldings.
You tell him, Tech. I tried to, but now I think we can show him. An owner just brought this 55 Plymouth in with that fancy cut glass treatment on the windshield. Says he had it happen in a lumber yard. Our job? Replace it. So we've got a good chance to bring you up to date on glass work and headlining service while we're at it.
That suits me, Joe. I was just telling Tech I could use some help.
Well, fine. We might as well start the ball rolling then. First off, we'll cover the cowl and seats to guard against scratches or dirt.
Wide masking tape at the bottom molding and around the wiper pivot covers will also help.
Right, Tech. Now Bert can remove the wiper arms.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what's next?
The windshield belt molding, Bert. It's a three-piece deal. Remove the screw in each windshield post and the 6 retaining nuts you can reach under the instrument panel. While you're under there, loosen the wiper pivots so you can slide the molding out from under the pivot cover. That's necessary on all models except the Dodge.
Yeah, Bert. The molding removal differs slightly on all models. We're working on a Plymouth, but you'll find the other models covered in the reference book.
Okay, Tech. I'll keep that book handy.
Fine, Bert. Now, once the belt molding's off, you can tackle the 2 side moldings.
I got you, Joe. Just take out the 3 attaching screws on each post.
After removing the side pieces, lift the top molding off. It's just held in a groove in the weather strip and with the side moldings which snap over it.
Swell. Now, all I have to do is remove the clip at the center and raise the outer ends of the bottom moldings and lift them out of the weather strip, right?
That's a ticket, Bert. And by the way, you'll find that a few models are equipped with an exterior visor trim molding at the top of the windshield. On these cars, you remove the rear view mirror and the inside top garnish molding first. Then you can get at the retaining nuts that hold the visor molding to the header.
I'll keep that in mind, Joe. Now, how do we stand on this job?
Well, at this point, removing the glass is a 2-man job. So I'll get inside.
And when moldings are off, the glass removal operation is just about the same on all Chrysler-built cars.
I get it. Should I, unlock the strip now?
Yeah. Start the nib of the weather strip tool in the locking seam at the corner. Then work it around to lift the locking lip from the seam.
Don't let me catch you using a screwdriver to unlock that weather strip, or I'll pulverize your arm. A screwdriver can chew blazes out of that locking strip.
Oh, get off my back, Tech. You know I wouldn't use a screwdriver.
Okay, Bert, okay. Put on your gloves and get ready to catch the glass. I'll push out on the lower corner first. Then I'll work pressure across the bottom. If you ever remove a good glass to tackle some other surface operation, be careful how you set it down to avoid scratching the surface and chipping the edges.
Okay, Joe. I'll watch out for that.
Some other things mechanics ought to watch are those metal buckles and buttons on their clothes or tools in their pockets, Bert.
You're so right, Tech. It's easy to gouge the car paint if you're not careful. It's also smart to keep sharp tools out of pockets when sitting inside a new car. We don't want to poke any holes in the upholstery.
You needn't worry, fellas. I'll be super extra careful.
Fine. Now, if you ever get a case where the glass was broken for no apparent reason, remove the weather strip and check the metal fence. A high or wavy spot causes uneven pressure on the glass. You'd want to correct any unevenness before installing a new glass. How to check the opening and the fence is covered in the reference book. Now, getting back to installing a new glass. If you remove the weather strip from the fence, you naturally install that weather strip first. Be careful not to stretch it and use only hand pressure to seat it firmly in place.
After the weather strip is in place, coat its outer surface and glass groove with mild soap solution to ease in the glass.
Right. Then Install the top edge of the glass first. Use a fiber wedge to spoon the weather strip lip over the top edge, around the top corners, and partly down the sides. Once that's done, I'll go inside and push out on the glass slightly so the weight doesn't fold the weather strip in. Then you can work the bottom edge and sides into the glass groove easier. And now that the glass is in the groove, just tap around on it with the flats of your hands to make sure it's properly seated.
Don't you use the rubber mallet?
Not on your life, Bert. You'll crack the glass if you do.
Okay, no mallet.
Now, use the tool to lock up the weather strip. Just hold the tool horizontally and work it all around the strip. With the glass in place, coat the molding groove of the weather strip with the soap solution. Then, starting at the sides, slide in the top and bottom moldings.
At this spot, Bert, it's okay to use the mallet if you have to. Just tap the moldings lightly into place.
All right, Tech, will do.
Now, install the bottom clip over the joint. Then, reinstall the two side moldings, making sure they snap over the top and bottom moldings. After that, reinstall the belt moldings and tighten the wiper pivot bracket nuts. Replace sealer at any points from which you removed it so you'll be sure there won't be any water leaks. Then install the wiper arms, and you're in business.
I see, Joe. It's not so hard after all.
No, it's fairly simple, Bert. And removing the rear window is also easy. You'll find the procedure for doing that in the reference book.
Right, Joe. But I'll never have to take that rear window out unless it's broken, will I?
Well, not unless you're going to remove and install a new head lining, Bert. The rear window has to come out then because the lining is tucked around the opening under the weather strip.
I understand. Well, then why don't you wise us up on how to replace this new head lining?
Not a bad idea, Bert. So, here goes. After the window is out, you begin by removing the rear seat and back. Then start removing the head lining at the rear. Drop the rear weather strip loose from the top and sides and carefully pull the head lining loose at that opening. Then pull the head lining loose from under the package shelf and away from the quarter panel and wheel housing.
Yeah, and if you can pull yourself away for a minute, somebody can turn this record over. Then we can go on with this head lining job.
Now, if you're going to reinstall the same head lining, carefully insert a screwdriver behind the retainer strip. Pry the strip away from the roof side rail above the doors. Then insert a stiff wire about 8 inches long between the retainer strip and head lining to lift the fabric off the retaining barbs. While you're working that wire with one hand, use the other hand to pull the head lining out from behind the retainer strip.
I understand. But here's a question. Suppose the old head lining was torn and you were going to replace it with a new head lining. Would you still do it the same way?
Well, in that case, Bert, you can cut the old head lining at the doors about 2 inches above the lower edge of the roof line. Then, with a screwdriver, pry the head lining retainer away from the roof rail and pull the material from the barbs.
But don't forget, that might bend some of the barbs, so check and straighten any that need it.
Good point, Tech. Now, when you've got the head lining loose at the edges around the entire car, you're ready to remove the head lining bows.
Bows? What are they?
Thin steel ribs, Bert, like stays in an umbrella. They're enlisting seams which are sewed into the head lining. You'll get a better idea when this head lining comes off.
Okay, but I think I understand it now.
All right, Bert. You'll notice that the center of the rear head lining bow is held by a retaining clip. This clip extends forward from the top of the rear window. Now, first, bend this clip to free the bow. Next, spring the bow and remove the bow ends from clip holes in the roof side rails. At most bow locations, there are 2 clip holes. The bows are fitted into the hole that provides the smoothest fit for the lining. And so, when you remove the bows, mark the holes they came out of, so you'll get the same beautiful contour you had originally.
Here's something else. Don't remove the bows from the old head lining yet. They're different lengths and you might mix them up. Leave them in their listing seams for now.
Say, that's right. We're going to have to thread those same bows into the new head lining when we install it.
I follow that. Guess I better finish marking these holes and then remove the bows, right?
Sure thing. And once the headlining and bows are out, we'll check the roof silencer pad and re-cement any sections that might be loose.
But for Pete's sake, fellas, use a cement that dries hard and solid for any re-cementing. You don't want a cement that's going to melt and run all over the headlining on a hot day.
Tech's got a good point there, Bert. Now let's match the old headlining with the new one. Then we can trim off any excess material.
When that's done, slip off the retaining clip from one end of the bow, pull the bow out, and install it in the same position on the new headlining. Then put the clip back on.
I get you. Put the rear bow from the old headlining into the rear listing of the new, and so on, hey?
You're cooking on the front burner now, Bert. And notch the headlining in the center of the front and rear edges. The notches will help keep the headlining centered when we install it.
Okay. Ready to go.
Good. We begin at the rear. With the scissors, cut a hole in the middle of the listing for the rear headlining bow support clip. This will also help distribute the material evenly on each side of the roof.
Good going. If you tried to force a hole through the listing, the material would pull and set up wrinkles you'd never smooth out.
Right. Next, you install the rear bow ends in the clip holes you marked. Install the rest of the bow ends, making sure you stretch the headlining evenly so the same amount of material hangs down at both sides. In most cases, the listing will be longer than the bows. You'll have to cut them in from the sides to avoid wrinkles at the seams near the roof side rails.
How far in can we cut, Joe?
Right up to the headlining bow clip. If you go past the clip, the material will leave the contour of the bow and angle straight across to the retainer at the roof side rail.
Okay. What's next?
Apply cement to the windshield header bar next. Wait until it becomes tacky. Then take the new headlining material, stretch it forward over the cemented area, and snap it onto the barbs on the windshield header. Be sure the first seam at the front of the headlining is straight.
Yeah, don't stretch it too tightly or you'll get an uneven first seam and set up strains in the headlining.
Thanks, Tech. That's a point I almost forgot. Cut holes in the headlining for the sun visor retaining screws next. Install the visors before tucking in the corners of the headlining at the top of the windshield posts so you won't tear the lining when you tighten the screws.
Okay. Then what?
Well, then you should reinstall the windshield garnish moldings. By the way, if you find the material at the side a little longer than necessary, trim the headlining so only 1/2 to 1 inch hangs down below the door wind cord. Then use a dull putty knife to tuck the first and second seam between the roof side rail and headlining retainer.
Here's a tip. Small vertical cuts in from the edge at the tucked-in part will help keep the material from wrinkling, especially at the corners.
This is a two-man job for sure, Joe.
Well, it is done best by 2 men, Bert. But if you ever have to go it alone, alternate from one side to the other and do only the one section at a time. That way you'll keep the seams straight. When you get it all in place between the roof rail and retainer strips at the sides, you're ready to button up the job at the rear. So put cement on the surface of the rear window opening where the headlining will fasten. Also, apply cement to the quarter panel braces, rear wheel housings, and under the package shelf cover corners. Check the material you'll need. Trim off any excess. Some of those slits in the edges will also help the fit. When the cement is tacky, press the headlining onto it, starting above the center of the rear window and working to the sides. Stop about 6 inches from the lower window corners. Then press the material in place at the quarter panel braces, the wheel housings, and under the package shelf corners. Install the rest of the headlining at the rear window, making sure all wrinkles are worked out.
I suppose you could go ahead and put the rear window weather strip back in place and install the glass then, right?
You sure could, Bert. Just be careful not to get any soap solution on the new headlining. And don't forget to locate the center of the dome lamp bracket and cut a small hole there. Pull the wires through and attach them to the dome lamp housing. After that, apply cement to the inner edge of the dome lamp bracket. When it gets tacky, hold the dome lamp in place and reinstall the screws.
And remember to reinstall the other hardware and the rear view mirror.
Okay, Tech. Now, outside of that headlining work, I feel a lot better about handling windshield and rear window jobs.
Fine, Bert. But headlining service won't bother you after you do a few.
I feel better myself. When you boys are on top of more ways to service these new cars best, our owners are going to be mighty pleased. And we'll keep our customers happy as long as you and all of our mechanics continue to provide the best in service.